I always thought betrayal would come with shouting, slammed doors, or cold silences over dinner. I thought it would feel sharp, loud, obvious. Instead, it came with a smile, soft lighting, and a dried pregnancy test inside a velvet box. My son told me they were expecting. His wife, Talia, handed me the box at Sunday brunch. I thought it might be jewelry. It wasn't. It was a test tucked in satin, as if it was something precious. She said, "We wanted you to be the first to know, especially since you've already given us your blessing to move in." I remember blinking, slowly. My what? Miles raised his glass before I could speak. "To a growing family, and to my mother for her generosity." The people at the next table actually clapped. Talia lifted her phone and said, "Smile, Lucia, this is a memory." So I did, because I had no idea what else to do. I'm Lucia Marlowe. I'm 60 years old, and this is how my son and his wife tried to take everything I built, and how I made sure they walked away with nothing. I used to be an architect, not the flashy kind with magazine spreads and TED Talks. I worked in preservation. I fought for stubborn bricks and forgotten arches. I restored things other people thought were too old to matter. When my husband died 6 years ago, the apartment we had poured ourselves into became my sanctuary, the top floor of a pre-war building in Chicago. We bought it when no one else wanted it. We stripped every wall by hand. I rebuilt it from inside out. Exposed beams, crown moulding, skylights that breathed with the seasons. Every detail mattered. The kitchen tiles we picked after our honeymoon. The fireplace mantel we rescued from a collapsing estate. The banister I refinished with my husband on a summer weekend when it was too hot to think. Our home wasn't just space. It was memory made solid. It was the story of us. Miles grew up here. He had his first birthday in the breakfast nook. He learned to ride a bike in the hallway. He once coloured an entire wall blue when he was 4, and I didn't paint over it until he moved out. He used to build castles from pillows and whisper stories to the plants on the balcony. He wanted to be a designer once, even drew houses in the margins of his school notebooks. But sometime after college that changed. He got into real estate, said flipping homes was more practical than designing them. I didn't mind, he seemed happy. I just wanted him to stay close. When he married Talia, I welcomed her. She was warm at first. Sweet in that filtered, curated way that influencers often are. She had a wellness channel online, all soft lighting and bamboo shelves. Her presence was intentional. She liked to move things around, frame corners with plants, restyle the couch cushions. Once I came home and found my dining room rearranged for better light. I told myself it was harmless. They didn't ask for money, not directly, but they hinted. IVF was expensive. Rent was tight, work was uncertain. I helped, quietly, paid off one of their medical bills, covered a few loan installments. I didn't tell anyone. I thought I was helping build something, so when they said they were expecting, I felt something between joy and alarm. Not because of the baby, because of how they said it, like it was part of a plan I hadn't agreed to. After brunch I walked home alone, my legs stiff, my head echoing with Talia's voice. "You've already given us your blessing." I tried to remember when I might have done that. Had I said something? A comment about needing less space? A joke about moving in with a friend someday? Or had they just decided it was easier to pretend I had? That night, I didn't sleep. I wandered the apartment like a stranger, touched every surface we had saved. The etched window above the staircase, the plaster ceiling with the tiny cracks I used to trace like constellations, the kitchen drawer that sticks just slightly because the track is a millimetre off centre. I touched it all and felt something ancient stir in me, not grief, not fear, something harder. The next morning I opened Instagram. Talia had already posted. A video reel, slow music, soft transitions, footage of my hallway, my living room, the windows that face the lake. The caption read, "Future baby's first home. So grateful to Lucia for making this dream come true. Let the nesting begin." There were over 200 comments, all hearts and sparkle emojis. People I had never met thanking me for being such a generous mother-in-law. Miles commented 3 red hearts and the word blessed. I didn't like the post. I didn't comment. Instead, I stared at my phone screen until my face reflected back at me. I looked older than I felt. But I looked focused. They want this space. They think they've already claimed it. But they forgot something. I designed this place. I know where every line begins, and I can still decide where it ends. 3 days later, an envelope appeared on my doorstep. No knock, no text. Just a slick manila folder wedged under the mat like it belonged there. Inside was a document titled Preliminary Cohabitation Agreement. There were 3 names listed: Miles, Talia, mine. The only blank space left was the signature line next to mine. The file included suggested dates for the move, budget estimations for minor renovations, and an attachment labelled Interior Transition Plan. They were already referring to my home as a shared space, but the language gave away something more dangerous. There were phrases like, based on prior verbal consent, continued occupancy by original resident optional, and conditional asset convergence pending agreement. It wasn't just manipulative, it was predatory, the kind of wording designed to blur lines and catch you off guard if you blinked too long. They weren't trying to convince me, they were positioning me, and not just socially, legally. I called Miriam. She didn't say much while I explained what had arrived. I heard her typing, then she stopped. Lucia, she said, they're trying to establish an intent trail. If you reply, if you comment, even if you acknowledge that document, it could be used as implied participation. I stayed silent. She continued. This is exactly what some firms do when preparing to challenge competence or capacity. They flood the target with material, give them deadlines, pressure them to react. Any response becomes evidence. Then she asked the question that had been hovering in the back of my mind for days. Do you think they're planning to challenge your mental clarity? I didn't answer immediately, but I didn't need to. We both knew the answer. That night, I watched a video Talia had posted 2 hours earlier. It was soft, filtered, her voice low, gentle, the perfect performance of concern. She sat in their parked car with her hands resting on her stomach. She said, "We just want what's best for everyone. Change is hard, we know that, and some people are scared. But fear shouldn't hold back a child's future." In the background, you could faintly hear Miles's voice on the phone, saying something about the timeline and legal flexibility. It wasn't specific, but it was strategic. The captions read, "Families grow, homes change. We're trying to make space for love." In the comment section, I saw phrases like, "It's time to let go. Older folks struggle with control. This is your home now." They had framed me as stubborn, unstable, in the way. Talia was not just posting videos. She was shaping public sentiment, and with every reel she made it easier to question me. I watched that video twice, then I closed the app, and I opened the drawer where I had started storing all my original legal documents, insurance policies, ownership certificates, healthcare directives. I reviewed each line carefully, highlighted every instance of Miles's name. There weren't many, but there were just enough to give me pause. That temporary medical proxy. It was more expansive than I remembered. A line in the fine print gave him authority to manage transitional affairs in the event of incapacity. It had been signed in the hospital after my infection. I remembered barely being able to sit up, coughing through every breath, and Miles saying, "Just sign so I can handle the paperwork." I had signed without reading. That was my mistake, but it wouldn't be theirs to use. The next morning I had Miriam review every clause. Her tone shifted from clinical to sharp the moment she saw the form. "This could be dangerous," she said. "If they get a cooperative doctor to write a basic note suggesting mild memory decline, Miles could attempt to freeze your authority over certain financial matters. It wouldn't be easy, but it's possible." I asked how to stop it. She said 3 things. First, revoke the proxy immediately and file it with the state. Second, document your clarity, record everything, speak, write, timestamp. Third, do not let them know you know, not yet. That last one was hard because I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk into their apartment and tear down every vision board they had taped up about my home. But I didn't. I waited. Instead, I hosted Talia. I texted her that morning, said I was feeling off and wanted to talk. She arrived in less than an hour, holding my favorite green tea and a paper bag with muffins I never ate. She came in like it was already hers, set her bag down on my side table, walked straight into the kitchen and opened the fridge. She talked about how she'd repaint the walls, said she might remove the upstairs door to open the space for energy flow. She talked about light, calm, minimalism. She mentioned how clutter can affect babies' nervous systems. Then she said, "Of course, we'll always make sure you have your corner, maybe the reading nook. It's got great light." I let her talk. I let her walk through the rooms. I offered tea and watched her settle on my couch like she was checking out a rental listing. She scrolled on her phone while I stepped into the kitchen. That's when I saw it. Her bag was unzipped. Inside was a printed floor plan, my floor plan. It had handwriting on it, labels like baby space, media room, and possible teardown. Next to it, a printed Zillow estimate. And behind it all, a sticky note with the words, "Confirm timeline with doctor." She wasn't staging for their life. She was staging to sell. I didn't touch the papers. I didn't confront her. I stepped back into the living room, smiled, and asked if she wanted to stay for lunch. She looked surprised, then pleased. "Sure," she said. "That would be nice." I microwaved leftover soup and set out crackers like everything was normal, like I hadn't just seen her price my home, like it was already hers, like I didn't notice that her hands didn't shake, her posture didn't hesitate, her movements didn't carry the stiffness of a newly pregnant woman. She'd claimed they were expecting, but in the 30 minutes she was in my home, she opened the fridge, poured herself a sparkling drink, sat with her legs folded tight, and glanced at her phone over a dozen times. No caution, no concern, no sign of anything real. When she excused herself to the restroom, I waited until I heard the door click, then crossed back to her bag. I didn't take anything. I didn't need to. I took one photo, floor plan, price estimate, sticky note with the doctor reference. Then I walked away and refilled her glass. She left around 2 o'clock, still smiling, still calling the front hallway the future nursery entrance. I locked the door behind her, slid the bolt across, then pushed a chair in front of it. Not because I felt afraid, because I needed a physical act to channel what was burning under my skin. Rage was too simple. This wasn't rage, it was precision. Focus. I sat down at the table and created a folder on my computer called Proof Phase 2. I uploaded the photo, then I opened my journal and wrote down the conversation word for word, her tone, her exact phrases. Every time she said when instead of if. Every time she spoke in past tense about decisions I hadn't made. That night I texted Miles, "Let's have dinner soon, just us." He responded with a thumbs up emoji. No words, just the icon. That was the moment I knew he wasn't trying to be subtle anymore. I wasn't his mother in this equation. I was a variable, a legal hurdle, a deed he hadn't crossed off yet. 2 days later, another envelope came. This one delivered by hand, pushed through my mail slot while I was in the shower. Inside, a formal notice from a law firm I didn't recognize. A request for transitional occupancy review, signed by a junior associate with a highlighted clause citing potential grounds for medical guardianship filing if patterns of impaired decision-making could be documented. Patterns. That was the word they used. Not diagnosis. Not proof. Just patterns, the kind you could create if you built the right narrative around them. If someone recorded enough videos, edited enough clips, posted enough vague captions about decline and confusion. I sent a photo of the document to Miriam. She called within 2 minutes. "They're escalating," she said. "This is their first formal move toward a guardianship claim. It's a threat. But if they get the right judge and even one cooperating doctor, it could freeze your assets while it's reviewed." I asked what we needed to do. She said, "We respond with documentation, legal, medical, personal, and you make your mind unshakable on paper." That night I didn't sleep. I organized everything, journal entries, video evidence, screenshots, photos, all labeled and dated. I recorded myself reading a summary of my finances, my current decisions, and my understanding of each major asset. I read clearly, confidently, and referenced real documents on camera. Then I uploaded everything to a secure server and gave Miriam full access. I emailed a notarized revocation of Miles's old medical proxy and requested a new assessment from my physician, who knew me well. I wasn't fragile. I was surgical. The next day I went to the building management office. I filed a request to restrict access to my unit. No key duplication without my signature. I checked camera logs. Miles had accessed the building 3 nights ago without informing me. Said he was checking on things. I hadn't asked him to. That was his second silent entry. I logged it. I noted the time. Then I had the locks changed again and revoked his guest status from the system. I started working with an old colleague of mine, Iris, who had transitioned from architecture into quiet real estate consulting. She specialized in off-market listings for clients who didn't want attention. I told her everything. I didn't hold anything back. She didn't gasp. She didn't pity me. She just said, "We'll do it quietly and we'll do it fast." The plan was simple. Sell the apartment privately to a preservation trust. No listings, no showings, no room for contest. The buyer would inherit the space as it was, unmodified, untouched, and under a deed restriction that prevented any alterations for 20 years. They wouldn't get to paint the walls. They wouldn't even get to repaint the mailbox. I wasn't just taking the apartment from them. I was locking it in time, sealing it away from their vision board futures and their baby pink Pinterest palettes. Meanwhile, I played my part. I sent Miles friendly texts. I responded to Talia's reels with short, neutral comments. I smiled in photos when they dropped by unannounced. I let them believe they still had me on the hook. I even asked Talia to help me rearrange one of the guest rooms just to see what she'd say. She beamed, said we'd start after their next appointment. When I asked about the ultrasound, she looked away and said it had been rescheduled. I nodded, noted the hesitation, filed it under false claim pregnancy. I didn't accuse, I just observed and waited. Because that's the thing about people who script your downfall. They never expect you to rewrite the ending. It started with a fake grocery list. I wrote it in cursive, dated it, and taped it to the refrigerator. On the back, I scribbled notes about antique door measurements, some musings on light angles, and a reminder to check with the bank on transfer restrictions. I left it there intentionally. I knew Talia would see it. And she did. The next time she stopped by, just to say hi, she glanced at it more than once. I saw her eyes skim the handwriting, trying to make sense of the back page. She asked if I was redecorating. I said maybe, nothing serious, just thinking ahead. She smiled too widely. Later that night, her story said, "Some changes coming soon. So grateful to be part of this new chapter." A blurry photo of the front hallway was attached. My hallway, my antique mirror partially cut off at the edge of the frame. I watched the engagement climb past 3,000. The comments were filled with assumptions. "She's moving in soon, right?" "Such a lucky mama to be." "That space is a dream." They were building momentum, feeding a public narrative, and I was letting them. Because there's nothing more dangerous to a manipulator than silence that stretches too long. It makes them rush. The next day, Miles texted me a message that felt like a finale. "If you're ready, we can bring the moving crew on the 15th. I'll handle the paperwork. Don't stress." No question mark, no option, just a plan already in motion. That same night, I finalized the sale of the apartment. Iris had secured the deal quietly. A historical preservation non-profit was buying it outright. Cash, no inspections, no contingencies. Closing was scheduled in 72 hours. Every part of the contract was airtight. I would walk away with a full transfer of funds, and they would inherit a property immune to the renovations Miles and Talia were dreaming about. I didn't tell them. I let them think I was still considering their proposal. I even replied to Miles's text, "Thanks, let's talk next week, I'll get organized." He sent back a thumbs up again, his signature form of acknowledgement, no warmth, no words, just assumption. The following morning, Talia uploaded a video from inside the apartment. She was sitting on my couch, filming herself talking about bringing warmth into the space and manifesting new beginnings. The caption read, "Soon to be ours, but always Grandma's legacy." It had over 4,000 views by midday. I didn't cry. I took a screenshot and filed it. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I left a sign. I placed an empty suitcase by the front door, zipped open with a folded sweater and an old passport on top. Not because I was traveling, because I wanted them to think I was. Talia stopped by unannounced again the next day. She noticed it immediately. "Going somewhere?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Just visiting a friend, I replied. I need some quiet before everything changes. Her smile widened. She asked if I needed help packing. I told her, no, I'm only taking what matters. That night, I boxed up my files, loaded them into Iris's car, and signed the final transfer papers. The apartment was officially no longer mine, but legally no one else knew yet. Not until the contract was filed with the city registrar the following week, and not until I made one last move. I left a small envelope on the kitchen table addressed to Miles and Talia. Inside was a typed note. No emotion, no confrontation, just facts. This property has been sold. Any assumption of occupancy should be directed to the new owner, listed below. Do not contact me regarding this space again. I signed it with my full legal name, underlined twice. Iris picked me up the next morning at 6 a.m. I walked out with one duffel bag, my portfolio case and the cat carrier. I didn't say goodbye to the building. I didn't take one last look at the hallway or the rooftop or the staircase I had rebuilt with my husband in our first year of marriage. I had already said goodbye in pieces. In every moment they tried to replace me, in every video, every lie, every document they drafted behind my back. My goodbye wasn't a word. It was an act, one they wouldn't understand until it was too late. Miles arrived 2 days later. I know because the doorman, who I had quietly tipped to keep an eye, texted Iris to let me know. He came with movers, boxes, a key that no longer worked. He knocked, he called, he circled the building, then he left. Hours later he sent me a message. Where are you? No punctuation, just that. I didn't reply. That night he tried again. We saw the envelope. Tell me this isn't real. Again, I didn't respond. He didn't call the next day. Talia did. She left a voicemail, her voice breaking, sniffling, breathing heavily. We were counting on this. We told everyone. You said you'd be part of our child's life. Pause, then, quieter. Why would you do this to us? I replayed it once, then deleted it. They hadn't asked me to be part of their life. They had asked for my space, my name, my history, my silence. And they thought by filming me into a corner they could steal all of that before I realized what they were doing. But I wasn't confused. I wasn't bitter. I was exact. A few days later, Miriam confirmed the sale had cleared all checks. The deed was officially filed. The home belonged to the trust. Miles and Talia no longer had a claim, not legally, not socially, not symbolically. I asked if they could challenge anything. She said, "Not with what we've built, it's done." I nodded. I hung up. Then I opened a new file on my computer. I labelled it Quiet Exit Fund. Inside, I placed my will, a list of the items I had taken with me, and a final letter of intent stating that no member of my family had claim over my estate, assets, or legacy. I didn't plan to disappear. I planned to erase the script they thought they could write over mine. The silence lasted 5 days. No calls, no texts, no posts. Then, without warning, it broke. Talia uploaded a video titled, "When Family Betrays You, a Pregnancy Without a Home." Her voice trembled, eyes red-rimmed, mascara running just enough to look authentic. She sat alone in a sunlit room, holding a printed sonogram against her chest. The same one she had shown at brunch weeks ago, except this time it was framed. Her caption read, "We believed in love, we believed in family, she chose abandonment." It exploded. 10,000 views in 12 hours. The comment section became a storm. How could a mother do this? She's heartless. Disgusting behaviour from a boomer hoarder. She doesn't deserve a grandchild. I didn't comment. I didn't watch it again. I archived it, time-stamped it, saved it in the legal folder. That evening, Miles texted one sentence. "If you want to avoid court, sign the attached and we'll forget all this." Attached was a PDF. Property reassignment. His signature and Talia's were already on it. My name was there too, waiting. I didn't open it. I forwarded it to Miriam, then I replied with 6 words. "You will be served this week." There was no response. I turned off my phone. The next morning, I finalized the last transfer of my remaining accounts into a trust that excluded both of them by name. I updated my insurance, my healthcare proxy, my emergency contacts. Everything pointed to the Quiet Exit Fund, a legal entity designed specifically to support older women navigating family manipulation. I sent copies to my lawyer, printed 2 versions, locked one in a safe and gave the other to Iris. I spent the rest of the day sitting on a bench by the lake, watching the wind stir the surface, feeling the space inside my chest start to open again. I had expected relief, but it wasn't relief I felt. It was quiet, clean, a stillness that had no weight to carry. 3 days later, the Preservation Trust emailed me a photo. A new family had moved into the apartment. A young couple, no children, no Instagram presence, just smiles in a living room I once called mine. The woman had placed plants on the bookshelf. The same bookshelf Miles once said they would donate because it was dated. She didn't repaint anything. She had left the space as it was, as if she understood that some things didn't need to be improved, only respected. I stared at that photo for a long time. That night Miles called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "You win. I hope it was worth it. Hope you enjoy your little cabin or cave or whatever it is. You lost your family for it." I didn't reply. I saved it. I filed it. Then I deleted his number. I didn't need to hear his voice again. Not as a reminder, not as a wound. It was done. A week passed. Then a letter arrived, handwritten, addressed in Talia's looping script. Inside was a sonogram photo and a note. "Can we start over? A and D." The image looked familiar. I scanned it through a stock photo tool. It was a placeholder image from a pregnancy app, the same one she had used in an old vision board post nearly 6 months ago. They had printed it, framed it, mailed it like it was real. I didn't respond. 2 days after that, an email arrived. Subject, dinner, body. "We'll be in your area this weekend. Let's just talk. No pressure, just family." I didn't reply. Saturday evening came, and with it, a silver SUV pulled up outside the small townhouse I was now renting. They got out slowly, Talia in heels, Miles in a jacket too formal for a surprise visit. They stood at the gate, wine bottle in hand, knocked once, then again. "Mom," Miles called, "we just want to talk." I didn't move. I watched them from the upstairs window, lights off, blinds tilted. "You're shutting out your grandchild," Talia shouted. "Is that what you want?" She stepped closer, placed the wine gently on the porch. "We came all this way." Her voice cracked. I waited. I timed it. They stood there for 21 minutes. Then they left. The wine bottle was labelled forgiveness. I poured it down the sink. That same night, I sent a final document to Miriam, a statement revoking any and all rights of Miles and Talia to contest my estate. She filed it the next morning. Everything was sealed, irrevocable, unbreakable. There would be no loopholes, no appeals. They weren't just cut out, they were locked out, legally and permanently. 2 days later, Melissa, my niece, called. She'd seen the video, she'd read the comments. "I don't buy any of it," she said. "If you need backup, I'm here." I thanked her. Then I hung up and wrote her into the will. Not because of loyalty, but because of clarity. She didn't try to rewrite my story. She simply asked me what it was. That weekend I received a letter from the Quiet Exit Fund. The account had gone live, the first grants were being distributed. Women like me, women who were told they were overreacting, forgetting, fading, women who weren't confused at all, just underestimated. I wrote one line on the check I donated. "Use it well." I didn't sign it with flourish. I signed it with certainty. The cabin I moved into wasn't grand. It wasn't meant to be. A modest space on the edge of a quiet town, tucked beneath pines and framed by a narrow lake that misted over each morning like the world was still deciding whether to wake up. The walls creaked when it rained. The windows let in too much light at sunrise, but it was mine, not because I bought it, not because I signed the deed, but because no one else had ever tried to claim it before I arrived. It held no ghosts, no arguments, no Instagram reels. Just air, just time. I spent the first week in silence. No music, no news. I unpacked slowly, each item placed with intent. The old tea kettle from the city, the hand-drawn plans of my first restoration project, a photo of me and my husband on the rooftop of the apartment we had loved too much to sell until someone tried to take it. I didn't decorate. I arranged. I planted rosemary on the windowsill and set out a small ceramic dish for my keys. I walked every morning at 7, same path, same boots, same stillness. The town didn't ask questions, it barely noticed I had arrived. A month later I started volunteering at the community centre, teaching design basics to women over 50 who wanted to remodel their lives, not just their homes, their lives. We sat at folding tables with pencils and tracing paper and no expectations. I listened more than I spoke. That felt new. That felt earned. At night I drank mint tea and read the same page of a book over and over because I liked how it sounded. I stopped checking my phone before bed. I stopped waiting for the sound of footsteps outside my door. There were none. No knocks, no envelopes. Just wind and time and the knowledge that I had chosen this quiet, not accepted it out of surrender, but carved it out of resistance. 6 weeks after the final filing, Miriam called. She sounded lighter. "It's done," she said. "They're silent. They won't challenge it." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "They can't," I said. She agreed, then added, "You've created something rare, a legacy without a leash." I thanked her and hung up. Later that evening I received a message request from an unknown number. I didn't open it right away. I waited until morning, made tea, and then sat at the edge of the porch before tapping the screen. It was from Daniel, Miles's old college roommate. I saw what happened. I just wanted to say, "You were right to cut them off." I wish my mum had done the same before my sister drained her dry. Strength looks different when it's quiet. I replied with one word. "Thank you." I didn't need a parade of validation, but that message felt like closure handed back by someone who had nothing to gain from saying it. The kind that sticks, the kind that doesn't require noise. The apartment in Chicago no longer appeared in searches. The trust that owned it had chosen not to list it publicly. No photos, no press, just a space removed from the world that tried to stage it. I imagined it sitting there, preserved, still holding the lines I once sketched, with my husband's hands guiding mine, a place where nothing was filtered, a space that had been fought for, then passed forward. A few days later, a letter came from Melissa, a photo of her newborn daughter tucked inside. No grand message, just a note that read, "If she grows up to be half as strong as you, I'll have done something right." I pinned it to the small corkboard above my writing desk and stared at it for a long time. Not because I needed the affirmation, but because I wanted to remember that clarity was contagious, that choosing to walk away from a narrative someone else is writing isn't weakness. It's authorship. That night I wrote a final line in my journal. I did not leave, I reclaimed. Then I closed the cover and filed it next to the others. Proof not of my memory, but of my presence. That I was here, that I decided, that I knew. When the phone buzzed later, I didn't reach for it. I let it hum, then fall silent. The message could wait, or it couldn't. Either way, I had no intention of answering. The only door that mattered now was the one they couldn't open, the one I'd locked without keys, not with anger, but with intention. I walked to the porch, barefoot, warm mug in hand, and sat in the chair that creaked like an old friend. The breeze rustled the pine needles. A bird sketched lines across the water. I didn't need to look back to know the chapter had ended, not with drama, not with revenge, with peace, the kind that echoes. Some stories end with confrontation, with a courtroom, with screaming or slamming doors or headlines that make people pick sides. Mine didn't. Mine ended in a quiet room with morning light filtering through pine branches and no audience left to perform for. There was no final battle, just a door that was never answered, and a life that continued without permission. I began each day with the same rhythm, tea at 6, walk at 7, sketching from memory at 9, not for money, not for galleries, just to see what my mind still remembered when no one else was trying to tell me who I used to be. I stopped drawing people. I started drawing structures, strong ones, ones that didn't need paint to be seen. One morning I drew the doorframe from the apartment. I didn't know why. I hadn't thought about it in weeks. But as I shaded the corners, I felt it, calm, not grief. A memory that didn't demand to be kept, just acknowledged and let go. On a Wednesday the phone buzzed. An email, subject line, reflection. It was from Talia. "I know you probably won't answer. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for the things you think, for how it ended. We were scared. We thought we were building something. We thought you didn't want it anymore." There was no mention of manipulation, of forgery, of lies, just fear, packaged neatly as misunderstanding. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I read it once and closed it. Not because it didn't matter, but because it no longer defined anything. Later that day, I was pruning the mint bed when my neighbour Claire waved from across the fence. She was 71. Recently divorced from a man who'd owned her name longer than she had. She ran a soap business out of her garage and had a laugh that startled birds. We sat under the shade and drank lemonade from chipped mugs. I told her about the fake pregnancy, about the sonogram, about the staged videos and the silent threats buried in transition plans. She didn't gasp. She didn't blink. She said, "People get bold when they think they're owed something. But you didn't give them what they wanted. That makes you dangerous now." I nodded. Dangerous felt new. It felt right. Not in the sense of being feared, but in the sense of being untouchable. I hadn't just protected my assets. I'd named the thing they were trying to do, claimed it, disarmed it, and then moved on without apology. I didn't win by shouting louder. I won by not playing, by preparing my facts like armor, by making sure that every door they thought they could open had already been sealed behind them. That weekend, the fund I created issued its first emergency grant. A woman named Evelyn, 63, had been threatened with guardianship by her daughter after refusing to transfer her condo. She used the grant to hire counsel. Her case was dismissed. She sent a thank you note that ended with, "I thought I was losing my mind. Turns out I was just the only one in the room seeing clearly." I printed her letter and slid it into a folder labeled Why. By Monday, I no longer checked social media. I had scrubbed my accounts, deleted old posts, left only a single image on each one, a photo of a locked door with light spilling underneath, captioned, "Not gone, just not waiting anymore." One morning while sorting mail, I came across an envelope without a return address. The handwriting was too neat, the paper too crisp. I already knew what it was, another attempt. A card. This one printed, not handwritten. It said, "For the sake of the baby, we hope you'll reconsider." No names, just initials, A and D, the same letters as before. I shredded it without opening the rest. If there was a photo, it didn't matter. They had used up their stories. They had lost access, not just to my property, but to my presence. I didn't need to confront them. That's what they expected. A war, a spectacle, something they could explain to their followers and their family. Instead, I gave them paperwork and distance, and the echo of their own plans collapsing in their hands. In the end, the only place my name remained was on the quiet deeds I chose to leave behind. A trust, a cabin, a folder marked instructions, tucked in a drawer beneath a bag of dried lavender and a fountain pen I hadn't used since my husband passed. And there was peace in that, in knowing I could stop writing, that the chapter was closed not by a judge or a signature, but by decision, my decision. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever watched someone smile while moving your belongings behind your back, know this: you are not broken, you are not naive. You were not blind, you were simply too decent to expect war from the people you loved. And once you see it, really see it, you don't owe them anger, you owe them nothing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't justice, it isn't exposure, it isn't even legacy. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming a name they're not allowed to speak again.